to another episode of Tuesdays with Liz, a disability policy for all. Today I have the great fortune to be interviewing Glenna Wright-Gallo. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. Who is the Assistant Secretary of the U.S. Department of Education OSERS program. The Assistant Secretary has a lot of experience with the improvement of special education services for students from preschool to high school and has personal experience working in the classroom as a teacher and administrator. She is also a person with a disability. So welcome. She has also improved vocational rehab that helps people with disability get jobs. So welcome again. Today we're going to be talking about how the Assistant Secretary supports the department to improve education opportunity for people with disability. My first question is, what does OSERS stand for?
Great, thank you so much. So OSERS stands for the Office of Special Education and Rehabilitative Services. This is an area that we feel strongly about. We're focused on raising expectations regarding individuals with disabilities of all ages and improving outcomes for not only individuals, but families, communities, and across the nation. We really look at how is it that we can provide support and guidance for the entire lifespan of an individual with disabilities. So starting with birth and all the way through adulthood. Within OSERS, we have two main areas that we focus on. The first is the Office of Special Education Programs, or OSEP, which works with IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, Part C, and Part B. So starting with infants and toddlers with disabilities, there's around 770,000 of infants and toddlers with disabilities. And then looking at the school age population and preschool, ages 3 through 21, of which there's about 7.3 million students and children and youth with disabilities. OSERS also has a second area, which is the Rehabilitation Services Administration, or RSA, which engages with about 1.5 million people every year to help individuals with disabilities pursue their goals around employment and independent living. So it's a lot of work that goes in to OSERS, but it also supports the overall mission across the Department of Ed as well. And so I'm excited to have the opportunity to be working with this amazing team.
Thank you. What knowledge from working in a school district as a special education teacher and administrator do you apply to projects with OSERS?
You know, I think people who know me know that I'm an educator first. And so I approach things as an educator, as a teacher, and as an implementer. I want to know what is the sense of purpose that we're working towards. And then I also want to know, is the plan that we've created, is it likely to achieve the impact that we're desiring? So this is something that I bring to my planning, that I bring to my presentations, and that I bring to, all activities that we're doing across OSERS. Secretary Cardona is also an educator. And so it's been fun to have leadership conversations about things that happen in the classroom and the evidence-based practices that are needed to really improve outcomes for all individuals, including those with disabilities. We also really need to look at how do we grow leaders and how do we get people to take on the role of leaders, even if they're not formally designated as leaders. And for individuals with disabilities, it's important that we look at that we aren't delegating decisions around individuals with disabilities only to a certain part of our population or a certain part of our leadership. We need a diverse representation of individuals making leadership decisions, making policy decisions, and looking at budgetary needs. That means that we need educators and leaders of color. We need educators and leaders who have disabilities. And we need to make sure that individuals with disabilities are part of those problem-solving conversations themselves. And then I think last, we really need to look at how is it that we engage and use cooperation across agencies to support long-term outcomes. So we know that we need to move across the lifespan of an individual with a disability. So how do we coordinate services from Part C to Part B of IDEA? And then leaving school and moving to post-school and working with not only Voc Rehab, but other state agencies that support the needs of adults with disabilities. We want people to have more opportunities, not less. And so we want them to be able to easily access coordinated and seamless services that move them to post-secondary education or training, independent living, and be successful in competitive integrated employment.
Great. I think that is so exciting. The next question is, what are you working on to improve K through 12 education for people with disabilities?
So the Secretary Cardona has his Raise the Bar, Lead the World initiative, which really looks at overall, how is it that we address the educational needs of all children in the nation? And the OSERS department is looking at 5 main priority areas that further support his Raise the Bar strategies. The first one has to do with how do we have an adequate number and appropriately prepared diverse workforce? We need not only educators, but we need early intervention providers, Voc Rehab counselors, related service providers, and paraeducators, all of whom are appropriately trained to provide the supports that are needed, but also are provided the supports that they need to stay employed and stay engaged in the workforce to provide the services. Second, we need to look at how are we using and deploying evidence-based practices. So we are very fortunate that now with, IDEA implementation that goes all the way back, to PL 94-142 in 1975, I believe, we have a tremendous amount of research around how to make the most change and have the most impact with individuals with disabilities. We need to make sure that our workforce is aware of those, have been trained in those, and are using those evidence-based practices when deploying services. Third, we need to make sure that we're really effectively using accessibility tools, whether it's accessible materials, whether it's accessible tech, whether it's assistive technology that needs to be part of an IEP or an IFSP, or an individual transition plan. We really need to make sure that we're capitalizing on all of the things that technology has helped us with to equalize the playing field. For example, right now, I'm using captions as we're talking through Zoom. And this is something that's helping me, address the needs of my disability while still being able to engage in the work that I need to do. Fourth is we really need to actively and authentically engage with stakeholders. And so we need to make sure that we're not making plans in isolation based on a subset of information or anecdotal information, but that we're really addressing data, the needs of people that have been highlighted by those who are serving them and those who are impacted by those needs, whether it's the individual with disabilities, their families, or communities, and that we use that information to create comprehensive plans together. and make revisions as needed. And then last but not least is we really need to look at how it is that we access and use our resources effectively. So frequently we talk about the need for more funding, and we definitely need additional funding to provide services, but we need to really examine the funding that we have now and whether we're using it effectively and efficiently as well, in alignment with all of the things that I've told you about. So how do we support the diverse workforce? How do we support the use of evidence-based practices? How do we make sure that people have accessible technology and accessible materials at any age? So not only as an infant and toddler, as a preschooler, as a school age, but as an adult in the workforce. How is it that we really make that easily accessible and understandable and not to be questioned by others? As well as how do we use the funds that we have and that we get to make the most impact in, again, raising expectations around people with disabilities and what they are capable of with presumed competence and improving outcomes long term.
Thank you. That sounds exciting again. The last question is, what action do you see the Department of Education taking to improve education for people with disabilities through the remaining of the administration? There's a year and a half of this administration.
So this is such a hard question, Liz, because there's so much I'm excited about and I don't want to leave anything out, but I'm going to hit a couple of the big priorities or the big areas that we're working on. One is an activity that goes across both OSEP and RSA, and it's our 3E initiative, which is about expect, engage, and empower with successful transitions for all. And so we're really looking at here focusing on school to post-school transitions and working collaboratively with school systems and voc rehab, as well as other external agencies. And so how is it that we create the systems and provide the supports and the technical assistance for these systems to work together cooperatively and collaboratively to really create wraparound services around successful transition? I mean, that's really what it comes down to, right? The intent of IDEA is around moving individuals with disabilities towards post-secondary education, training, and independent living. And so we are kind of starting with that backwards design with that end in mind around transition planning. Along with that, we're doing a lot of work around the diverse and prepared workforce. So looking at, again, like I said, not only workers of color, you know, whether it's educators, whether it's providers, whether it's VR providers, but how is it that we really engage individuals with disabilities throughout all of the career opportunities here as well, because they're underrepresented in our workforce. With that, we're looking at how is it that we have educator prep programs and VR prep programs that are affordable, are provided at low cost, and are accessible to these personnel. But then how is it that we really look at apprenticeship programs and get people providing hands-on services as easily and as early in their career as possible? This is work that we're doing across the department. And so I think that's a key part of it, is that at OSERS, we can't do the work in isolation and expect long-term improved outcomes for individuals with disabilities. We have to make sure that our work is infused throughout the work of the Department of Ed and other agencies such as Department of Labor, right? To really make sure that we have a complex and concrete program that provides the supports needed.
What does infused mean? And
so infused, I mean, like we layer it. So rather than you go to the Department of Ed for one thing, or you go only to a specific program in the Department of Ed, I want to see opportunities for people with disabilities to get their needs met in every action or every activity that comes out of the Department of Ed that they're interested in, and that when they access services through the Department of Labor, that their needs are also thought of in advance throughout those activities that are available to them.
Thank you. And I'm so excited that you talk about prayers, and that one of the things I worry about the most, well, maybe not the most, but is that a job can I might not be able to get a job because I have never gone to college. I have never had those letters, those credentials, and that's not a plain language word. I know that, but I learned that those letters behind my name, but my colleague my colleague who might want to do Tuesdays with Liz might have had that opportunity.
Right. Well, and I think what's key here is if you wanted to go to college, right, that you had the supports that you needed to be successful, whether it was, affording college, whether it was finding the right program that really addressed your aspirations, what you want to do and why you wanted to go to college, and whether it was providing the accommodations that you needed to be successful during, your courses. It's about all of that. And if you don't want to go to college and you want to go into the workforce, we want you to have opportunities there to be successful, to learn while you're on the job, whether it's an apprenticeship, to be able to have a career pathway and be able to progress, and to work with individuals without disabilities. So that, it's an opportunity to replicate what happens in our community. And so we want to make sure that, using these federal funds and the improvement work that's coming out of the federal government and the Biden-Harris administration, that all of those supports are available to meet your needs, right? And your desires. It's not about a one size fits all. It's about multiple opportunities that really address where you want to go. And it's not too late if you still want to go to college, Liz.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Assistant Secretary, for your time, and I look forward to talking with everyone next month. Bye and have a great day.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you.